Welcome back to the Dynasty Dingers podcast. It is Thursday, August 21st. We are almost at the end of the fantasy season. We have a very special guest today. We're going to be welcoming back Eric Cross. Before we bring on Eric, Doc, what is going on, brother?
Bro, I just got a new shirt. If you're not watching,
Is that your
folks,
youngest?
it's my youngest. It's like a little gremlin pig, like a pig gremlin, like a Premlin or a Grig. But she's amazing. She just smiles and drools all the time. Reminds me of like a younger me, or maybe even just me right now after a couple of too many whiskeys. So life's been good, man. I'm feeling great, feeling better than you, man. You don't look good. You look like you're ill. Look like you're not. Look like you
Yeah.
are not doing great.
Yeah, you hold up better than I do. We've moved about as much as each other in the last year. We have a lot of life changes, but it hits me. You've done a good job of keeping pretty moderate health, and I have not. But I'm gonna have to have you and Eric really lead the way today. So why don't we welcome in Eric? Eric, man, it's been about 4 months, I think we talked. Welcome
Yeah.
back to the Dynasty Dingers.
Yeah.
Love having you on.
Thanks for having me. And I can't wait until Doc Stoddard pulls up this clip 14 years from now. Like, you called me a gremlin pig when she's like 15. She'll give you a earful about that. So just wait until they're teenagers. That's when the real fun begins. But yeah, thanks for having me back, guys.
Man, so exciting. This guy just knows ball because straight up, Matt, I don't want to blow anyone's mind, but Matt's kind of like the substance and the organizer of the show. And so today it was just so weird. We had no outline. We didn't really know exactly what was happening. And I just had faith that this was going to work out because we brought on someone who knows ball, Eric Cross. Man, excited to have him on and excited to have another Wyatt Langford believer on here. How's it feeling, man? This is not even on anything. We haven't discussed about talking about him, but I was like thinking in my head, who's a guy we both really like, right? And like people love to rip on Langford when he's down, and he was down like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and people were telling me I'm cutting him in my keeper league. I'm like, you can do what you want to do with this 23-year-old who's going to probably get 2020. Do what you want. How you feeling about him?
He still has like a shot at like a 25-20 season. It's kind of funny how, yeah, people seem to like the crap on Langford, but like he's had the stretches where he hasn't been great this year, obviously, and maybe it's a little underwhelming given what we kind of thought he could do this year, but it has not been a bad year. I mean, what's he have to like? It was 18 home runs and 16, 17 steals, something like that. It's like he absolutely could finish with like a 25-22 season or something like that, and stats are still all pretty good under the hood. K rate did go up a little bit this year, but it's not like there's nothing like alarming. Still pretty good stats under the hood. So yeah, I think if he's one of those guys, I'm still trying to drive that. You and I can drive that Wyatt Langford hype train, and if we derail, we derail. But we're gonna go down with the ship. But still feel pretty good that we're gonna make it to our destination, and he'll be like a top 25 or so player long term.
It's interesting. Now, I'm going to ask this to both of you because I had to pull up PCA's number before I asked the question, and I think it's a lot closer now than it was obviously just a few months ago here. And Doc, you brought up a really good point last week, which is Doc and I were arguing about rankings and how to rank and what's acceptable. And he brought up a really good point, which is just because he ranks someone higher doesn't necessarily mean that he'll trade 1-for-1 for that player, right? Because of the market consensus.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at PCA right now and you look at Wyatt Langford, I think, if you were to offer 1-for-1, PCA gets accepted for Wyatt Langford over and over, right? People would prefer PCA, I think, is the market value.
Yeah.
So for both of you, the question is, like, would you be willing, if you had PCA shares, to go and target Wyatt Langford and maybe a second and third piece, knowing that they are closer than maybe the industry feels?
Absolutely. I think, like I've said before, perceived value is everything. Just because, I might have a guy ranked, 30th or whatever, but if the perceived value is, oh, they're 20th, then that's not really a guy I'm going to want to go after because the price tag will be too high for my liking, or vice versa. If I rank a guy, like if I rank Wyatt Langford 25th, but the perceived value is more like 40 to 50 range, which it probably is right now, just given what I've been seeing on like social media and whatnot. But yeah, that means you could definitely go out and do a trade where, I still think, I mean, I like PCA too. I have some shares of PCA. My home keeper league team, I have PCA, which I'm very excited about. But yeah, if I could go out and get a guy who I think could be just as good long term or even better, and also get like a decent second piece right now, like I think you could probably get maybe a back end top 100 guy. Maybe that's a little high, but like at least like a top 150 guy tacked on with Langford. If you were to deal PCA, so that's basically if you think that Langford's going to be just as good or better long term, then you're almost getting that good value there, plus like a free add-on of a pretty solid player as well. Yeah, those are deals I love doing all the time. It's all about that perceived value. That's king.
Doc, what do you think?
I,
Are
I
you in? Would you rather roster Langford right now than PCA in Dynasty, or is it close for you?
No, I'd much. It depends on if we're talking BA only. If we're talking batting average only leagues, which are really not what I do, that's a different conversation. And outright, I would, as much as I love Langford more as a real player, in fantasy leagues, it's tough to turn down PCA and batting average only. That said, in every other league I play in, OBP counts, right? And it's just, I said it during the peak for PCA. I'm like, why? If he's barely over 300 OBP as playing as basically the best player in baseball, what's the floor? What's the floor? Like the guy's gonna have some things to work out, and so I don't know if maybe I'm just learning more ball. I feel like back when I first started popping off doing stupid whatever my opinions were on X, I was like, I don't know if Eric. I don't know if I was agreeing with Eric as much. I found myself agreeing with him more. So either Eric's getting worse with his takes or I'm getting better. I don't know. But I love that. The reason I'm saying that is the perceived value. I keep hitting on that this year. I'm like, it just seems so obvious, but it is. It's like it's perceived versus reality. If you can exploit that gap to your advantage, that's the game. That's the whole thing. It's actually pretty simple if you reduce it to that. And so I'd say, yeah, you give me in like a league that involves OBP. I'm taking, like I think this would have been done a week ago. You get pretty easily, I think, Langford and Pasquantino for PCA. I don't know about this week after Vinny P. I think you might even be able to get today. You might, because just doesn't matter what Maikel Garcia does. I think he's just like this underrated guy for now. You could get like Wyatt Langford and Maikel Garcia for PCA. Like that's really valuable to me at least. And yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Leagues will vary, but Eric, you kind of jumped in and said maybe a back in top 100 to 150. Doc, you were a little more aggressive, and I think that's a great representation, like from league to league, based off: is it 12? Is it 15? Is it 20? Is it 30? Right, Eric? We saw PCA moved in one of our Scout the Stat Line 30 mans just a week ago. It's a really interesting build, but the guy had come out and defended the trade and just said, "Listen, I was trying to move PCA all year." Doc and I disagreed with maybe the aggressiveness of shopping that individual, but he went for it and traded him. And I think as we get into the offseason, people will probably view PCA with a higher ceiling than what his second half has shown. And there's still a month and a little more than a week of baseball to play. So if he can break out of this cold streak and get back on some of his really aggressive outputs, that could really help that trade value get into the offseason. I think that kind of works as perfectly into our next segment, though, which is really 2025 in general, right? We're dynasty guys. We like to look at the minor leagues and track those players into what they're going to be. I think when we look at this season, there were a lot of performers that have fantasy value and fantasy relevance that weren't guys maybe on our radar. And I'll say that personally. I think of Isaac Collins as a perfect example of that. A guy that I see in a lot of leagues right now providing value for playoff teams. So kind of leading into that, Eric, how do players like Isaac Collins, maybe a Hurston Waldrep who had prospect shine, failed a little bit? Doc, you mentioned him today in a tweet. Giving incredible value right now in fantasy. How do those players fall into your strategy in 2026 and moving on?
Yeah, so I think this kind of falls into something I've been saying for a while now, but I think has taken on additional importance, the last year or two, is that prospect growth isn't linear. I think people kind of like to be almost like tunnel vision with their prospects, where it's like, oh, this guy is 25, pass, or this guy has never been highly ranked, or doesn't have like the buzzy, loud tools, pass. And Isaac Collins kind of fits both of those, where he was never a great prospect. He was never highly ranked. He probably wasn't even ranked in a lot of top 400, top 500s. If he was, it was probably back end. And what he's a little bit older. What is Isaac Collins right now?
I want to say 28.
28
yeah,
or 29. 27, 28, 29, something like that. So doesn't really fit the mold of, oh, he should be up by 22, 23. Yeah, he's 28. But then you look at the skills and yeah, it doesn't blow you away, but he does a little bit of everything across the board and makes plenty of contact, doesn't strike out a lot. So there's a lot of good there that you really didn't see. But I think that's why I think you have to be open minded with prospects, while also remembering that the gap between, and you've heard a lot of players say this too, between AAA and the majors is almost larger now than it's ever been, and that's why we see even these studly guys like Jackson Holiday struggled mightily. Now he's gotten it going this year, and he's a pretty solid player. Langford took a little bit to get going, then he had a great end of the last season. Like, it takes a lot of these guys, even the top prospects, a bit of time. Some less than others. Like Roman Anthony struggled initially. He was more of a smaller period, but then he got it going. So even these elite guys, more often than not, don't hit the ground running. And again, I think we were spoiled by, the Sotos, the Tatises, the Acuñas, the J-Rods, all of those guys. But we got to remember, like, those guys are dimes a dozen, like pennies a dozen. That's not even what I'm saying, but like, you don't see it very often, right? It's like 5% of guys hit the ground running like that. Even Nick Kurtz struggled for the first 3 weeks, and now he's been an absolute freaking beast ever since, to the point where it's like him or Vlad now is the discussion. But yeah, I think this kind of being open minded on not always needing to have your prospects in your dynasty team fit like this one mold. Like if you want to get these older, like like Sal Stewart, he's a little bit older, the Otto Kemps of the world, these 24, 25-year-olds. Go out and get these guys. If you like the underlying skills, then go out and get them. It doesn't matter if they're 20 or 25 sometimes. So I think we all get kind of into, they need to be young for the level, which is great. Obviously, I'm not saying that's not great. That's phenomenal. But I think the older guys, or the guys that just don't fit that cookie cutter, what should a top prospect look like picture, get undervalued and often get overlooked, like Isaac Collins. So I overlooked myself, totally guilty of that too. So I think just keeping an open mind and not, remembering that they don't always hit the ground running. Growth's not linear, and then attacking that if someone's price tag comes down, like, I want to shop Jackson Holiday last year, boom, then you sweep in, get him for 80 cents on the dollar, and you have a pretty good player moving forward. So again, it kind of goes back to that perceived value. That is true with prospects as well.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And you mentioned a name in there that I want to talk about at least one point today, which is Sal Stewart. I mean, talking about a guy that's rising, but a guy that I think most of us have been talking about it for a few years, with his on-base percentage ability throughout the minor leagues, starting to really show the power. Launch angle is up a little bit. It's a profile that I think is interesting. But before we get there, I wanted to ask you, in the vein of the Isaac Collins player profile, right? There's a number of them that we could probably identify beyond Collins this year. Eric, I wanted to ask you, in dynasty leagues, I traditionally like to hold at least one or two bench players for rotational pieces, a guy like Isaac Collins, right? This year, what I've found is I may need to expand that from one or two to 2, 3, or 4, where I can have more interchangeable variants there, because I in a lot of my leagues, I just missed out on those guys because I wasn't willing to drop players that aren't providing me value now, right? And thus ultimately not allowing me to go deeper in the playoffs. So the question for you is, has this year, or maybe even the last couple of years, encouraged you to keep more flexibility on your bench in dynasty, or do you stick to more of an approach of, this is my roster, I'm not worried about the waiver wire? And that would be, again, in more shallow leagues, right? I would say leagues under 20 managers.
Yeah, I think on the shallower leagues, you can afford to have that, the churn and burn, the roster turnover, because obviously the value on the waiver wire is a lot higher. But yeah, you get 15, 20 plus team league. With most of my dynasty leagues I think that my smallest dynasty league is, I think, 15. But then, like, I have an 18, I have 20s. So that has become more and more, of more of a focus, is getting, having a deeper bench. And in the leagues where I've kind of struggled this year in dynasty, like a couple mid-pack teams where I only have like one or two guys on the bench, because I think we always talk about the pitching injuries, but I think injuries are just so prevalent, even with hitters these days. We've seen so many big name guys like Jordan, Tucker, Acuna, Tatis, like a lot of big name guys are just hitters in general going on the IL at pretty alarming clips, because when you have the best athletes in the world, trying to do stuff that a lot of players weren't even doing 15, 20 years ago. I mean, the hitters are swinging harder now, pitchers are throwing harder, more breaking balls. Like this, that high level of athleticism oftentimes comes with, some elevated risk of injury. Like, you don't really have a lot of those, like the Matt Olsons of the world who have, I think he's played like 800 something straight games. You don't see a lot of that anymore. So you got to have that bench depth. So even having guys that, on paper don't like, they might not be the most fun players to roster, like, but you need them to plug in, whether it's an injury, an off day. The guys that are just, like the Ryan McMahons of the world. Like, nobody's like super thrilled about rostering Ryan McMahon, but he can provide value. The guys, even when it's like, a Jake maybe that's not good example. Like Davis Schneider, for example, like Josh Smith, like these types of guys, Ernie Clement, like those guys that you can plug in, especially with those guys with multiple position eligibility, like those last two, like Smith and Clement have, like 3 or 4 eligible positions that you can really have to plug in wherever you need to. And that helps because there's been teams that I've had that are really good teams that maybe finished, 2-3 spots lower than they should because I didn't have a lot of depth and the other people in the standings near me did. So yeah, I'm definitely there with you, Matt. Like, I think this become more and more of an importance on the hitting side as well. Just having that depth in those deeper leagues for sure.
Yeah, I love that, Eric. And what comes to mind is we mentioned this earlier in the year, but Doc and I helped start the 30 mans for STS, 2 different leagues, Cats and Points. And Andrew Monasterio was one of my pieces that helped me get to the playoffs. And Andrew Monasterio is he's a horrible fantasy player, but he has the value, like you just said, in a 30 man. If you lose a first baseman or a second baseman or a shortstop, and you can have a guy on the bench that has that, like you said, that multi-eligibility to just get you a point here or there, right? That can be the difference in a season. Doc, I wanted to circle back to Hurston Waldrep, right? You had a great post. You talked about it, writing about him a few weeks ago. Having an incredible output right now. Had a bad start to his career in 2024 last year. I remember watching him play the Nationals and kind of just unraveled on him. Seems to have improved his command so far at the major league level over the last 3 or 4 starts with the Braves. What do you think has changed about Waldrep, and has it really encouraged you to maybe target some of these top tier pitching prospects that were high draft picks if they're in good organizations and they have maybe a bad start to their career? Or has it not really changed your approach at all? Is it still like targeting those guys before they can return this value?
Man, it's just now is forever, right? It's the fantasy football season is upon us. And you're going to have players you'll see on fantasy football Twitter who literally from 1 week to 2 weeks later, they're going to be talked about like superstars to, this guy's worthless. And unfortunately, we have this. Well, hey, unfortunately overall, but fortunately for anyone who can buck this trend, it is becoming predominant. This like, what have you done for me lately mentality in fantasy baseball too? Because I see this like about Langford or Jackson Holiday. I'm like, can you not just take a step back? Can you not learn? Will we ever learn?
No, we
that
won't.
no, like Nick Kurtz. So Nick Kurtz, and like I'm out, and if you put a gun to our head on live on air, and you're like, when in the middle of Nick Kurtz's struggles, if you just sit there and be like, hey, do you still think this guy's a completely bust-proof prospect like we did like 5 seconds ago before he came up? Like, no, like everyone's like, we'd all probably say there's a lot more concern than there was, 2 weeks ago. And now he's gone through it and it's okay. Hurston, I mean, listen, not every player is guaranteed to come out the other side, but it's baseball. And it's a thing where maybe it's not going to happen on your roster. And this happens in real baseball sometimes, right? Sometimes guys take to like 26, 27, God forbid, older than that, to blossom. Charlie Morton took till he was 35. That's a whole new story. But with Waldrep, it's extra weird to me because it was pretty recently he was a top FYPD pick.
Mhm.
He was like that guy. And then, he got hurt, blew up. And it's like I'm still surprised. I still feel like people aren't fully on board yet. And I'm like, well, I don't know, man. Like, it's not like he's doing the same thing and getting fluky results. He's introduced a new sinker. And that was apparently catcher Sean Murphy. It was catcher Sean Murphy's idea. Didn't even have to look at anything. I just remembered that one, folks. It's actually more impressive that I forgot and remembered. So you're welcome. But yeah, he said, "Hey, buddy, throw a sinker." And so the Braves and fantasy GMs alike should be thanking him because this has unlocked Hurston Waldrop's arsenal. This is allowed for his pitches to all kind of play off each other. The splitter is the bread and butter. The splitter is filthy, and we knew it was filthy. Like that one was getting pitching ninja highlights even when he wasn't doing well at all. But now that he's actually got an arsenal, he's commanding that arsenal. We're starting to see why he was considered, I believe, universally a top 10 FYPD pick. That was in the Skeens draft? Am I crazy? Or that was in the 2023 draft? Yeah,
I think
that sounds correct.
Yeah, which is like a crazy draft. Like he was right up there, and goodness gracious, there's probably some people who made some like really aggressive picks in that draft. Like there's just by law of like leagues that exist, there were some major Hurston Waldrop fans out there who were probably dying inside, picking him over some of the talent from that draft. But Thomas White and Kevin McGonigal, of course, probably went after him in every single draft anyway. But he's turning it around, and he's looking. Frankly, I don't think people are really taking it in that this could be a frontline fantasy starter and a frontline MLB starter moving forward. Is that too aggressive, or what do you guys think?
I like Waldrop. I was a big Waldrop guy at the draft. FYPD time. I think I ranked him pretty highly. Like the upside's always been fun. Like the one kind of concern I have right now, even though he's pitching phenomenally, obviously, like he really only goes like when he wants to get a guy out, maybe get that strikeout, he really only goes to the splitter. And obviously, as you mentioned, Doc, it's a nasty splitter. I mean, he has 22 strikeouts and only 11 balls in play on that splitter. That's just like a ridiculous ratio. 0.61 batting average against, 48% whiff rate. But can he go to like? There's gonna be some days like we know that splitter especially is a really big feel pitch, and there's gonna be those days where he just doesn't have it as much as he probably would like to. Maybe it's only his B stuff, his C stuff, his B splitter, if you want to say it. So on those days, can he go to the curve, the slider, the cutter, which is another pitch he introduced this year as well? Right? Can he go to those pitches and still have success? Like I like Waldrop. I'm still kind of like in a wait and see mode, but there's definitely a lot of talent here. Decent velocity. Deeper arsenal now. It's 5-6 pitches, better than he used to have like a 3-pitch guy. So definitely he's taking that step forward. So I definitely like him. I'm just kind of like I'm not sure I want to go like all in quite yet, but I'm definitely intrigued.
Yeah, I'm probably in the middle of where you both are. I like the production that we're getting, but Eric, I do agree. Like the put away pitch being the splitter is either going to make him a top 15, top 20 SP year in, year out, or if there's a little bit of fluidity with that where there isn't always the consistency, it's how do you get those strikeouts, right? How and especially when you throw the arsenal he does that we've seen at the major league level get hit around, or when his command falters a little bit, right? And again, I will hit on that game against the Nationals last year. He went 3 1/3, great ball, and then the wheels just fell out from under him. The command fell apart. He had to start throwing in the zone. As soon as the Nats knew he was throwing in the zone, they attacked him. And we haven't seen that this season because of the change in arsenal. I think a sinker paired with a splitter is a great approach. We're kind of seeing that with Skeens a little bit with his 2-seamer, his sinker, like his overall arsenal is paired perfectly for limiting damage. But we also see with Skeens, his pitch counts get pretty high pretty quickly because he's constantly playing to avoid damage. Hurston Waldrop really needs those strikeouts to avoid the pitch count. So he gives you the wins and he gives you the quality starts. And I think that's my main concern, not seeing enough of him on a consistent basis, right? Because he's doing that right now. He's getting wins. He's getting quality starts. He's going deeper in games. I mean, I think he went 6 or 7 against the White Sox, was it yesterday, on 87 pitches. Like, that's what we need to see. But is that replicatable? Is it consistent? I don't know over the course of a full season. But definitely love where the prospect shine is now in comparison to where it was just this time last year. Very, very different, kind of returning that FYPD value. So I think we're in a solid spot.
How about where that shine was a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, right? That's the thing. AAA.
What shine? There was
Yeah.
no shine like a month ago. Well, very minimal. It was a dull shine. Now it's a lot brighter.
So Waldrop had coming into the FYPD picks that year, and I would say even this year with his performance at AAA, right? The quote unquote risk of reliever. And this isn't on the outline that we sent you, Eric, but I kind of want to have the conversation. We've seen devastation throughout the big time relievers this year. Hader most recently going down with the shoulder. Felix Bautista coming out with news that he's going to be out for a year now with a torn labrum and rotator cuff, which is just incredible. The fact that he tore both of them and was out there pitching. Devin Williams essentially losing his job. The list goes on, and it's really affected my play. I had a lot of these guys. I had leaned on a lot of these guys to help me win. And I really don't know what to do moving forward. We haven't even mentioned Emmanuel Clase with the gambling issues.
Yep.
So, question out to both of you. How has this season maybe changed your focus on relief pitchers, and also how you're rostering, blue chip prospects that could potentially transition from a starter's role to a bullpen role, which is very hard to gauge when they're young. But where are you at with reliever construction moving forward in your leagues?
To be honest, I haven't changed anything at all this year. I have always been a huge, don't really like try to build your relief, pitcher core, whatever you want to call it, because it's even before this year, like the turnover is so massive. Like you don't see a lot of like the old time. I grew up and it was like, I grew up on Mariano Rivera and Trevor Hoffman, and then you had your Papelbons of the world, K-Rod, Gagne, like a lot of those guys. Like you don't get a lot of those longevity guys. Like Kenley Jansen might be one of the last of a dying breed where you just don't see a lot of those guys that are, hey, this is the closer for the next 15 plus years. So, and we see all these other guys pop up, whether they're the fireball young guys that might have transitioned from the rotation because they couldn't hack it there, or you get like guys. First name I think of, like Will Vest this year in Detroit, provided some value before that the trade when they got Finnegan. So these guys that are maybe older and just pop into a role out of sheer opportunity. So yeah, that hasn't really changed the way I build either. I kind of try to like work it together on the fly. I'm not like, oh great, I have two great relievers for the next 3 years, because chances are one or both of them aren't going to be closing, or for some weird reason, whether it be injury or whatever. But then real quick on like the pitching prospect side of that, like I think people when they hear reliever risk, they think it's like a death sentence. And yeah, we obviously we want like Misiorowski, for example, great example. We want him to be a starter because he could be one of the 10 best starters in baseball. But these guys that if you move them to the bullpen, like they could still have value there. Maybe it's not quite as high as they could be as a starter for you, but some of these guys, like the top end guys, they could still be like lockdown elite closers and provide value that way. So it's not like a death sentence. If you hear that, yeah, there's concern, but don't completely like write off that player altogether, because they can still provide value in different ways. But yeah, I have never been a big component of building, for the future with relievers, because it's just so much year over year turnover, especially this year. It's like nobody can stay healthy. All the good guys have gone bad for the most part. It's like there's like 3 great guys and the rest are whatever at this point. It's hard to really predict.
Doc, what do you think? Has this year changed your opinion at all?
It's time to appreciate Kyle Finnegan.
Absolutely.
Nobody likes Kyle Finnegan. He's on one of the better teams in baseball now instead of one of the worst. And he's still not really being trusted. He hasn't been trusted his whole career. And he's got like 120 saves since 2021. Like he's one of the most bankable closers. I get it. It's not always pretty, but it's clearly a guy that even the best teams are like, yeah, he's just got something. Yeah, he's just got the je ne sais quoi. And we're seeing guys out there like, they can lose that mojo. And I hate to say it to the guys who love analytics. They love, let's just put the guy with the right numbers in there. Yeah. Hey, listen, use them to guide your judgment and to give the right guy the opportunity. But I'm telling you, as a human being, have you ever played beer pong?
Yep.
The first shot is carefree. It's like whatever. The last shot with the game on the line, when you got to close that out, It's a different mentality, brother. And so what I'm trying to say is I could be a closer in MLB going off my college beer pong skills. That said, no, I don't know. It's like every year there's going to be a wrinkle in the game. I think this is kind of a good like leaping point. Jumping off point would be a better way to put it, a more traditional way of putting it. Of like, what did we see this year that was different? I'm not sure this is different. I think you're right that generationally, Eric, we used to have a bit more reliability. I'll say shout out to Robert Suarez when it comes to closers. He's been someone again where we're also kind of assuming because there's so many studs with the Padres that he's not, he's just not going to be the closer or he'll lose opportunities and maybe he will, but hey, he's actually been pretty consistent this year. So shout out to him. In terms of things that are different this year, I just think that every passing year there's something different. I'll tell you what's one thing that's different this year. I didn't hear anyone talk about the ball this year. Did y'all hear anyone talk about the ball? No, seriously. Am I crazy or was that not discussed at all?
Not a lot. I heard like a little bit of talk, but not as much as in years past.
Yeah. That's really weird. I feel like every year it's been analyzed. Was it dead? Was it live? And you haven't really heard anything about that. But were you gonna say something, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Eric. It's just baseball has been very strange this year because if we look at the generalized numbers, I don't think we're seeing a lot of variation, but it does seem like starting pitchers are returning a lot of value this season. And it's a lot deeper than it has been in years past. I mean, Waldrop's a great name to kind of throw into that mix. Trevor Rogers, the guy I want to talk about today, right? Like the resurgence of some of these players that have been absolutely dominated for years. Quinn Priester's a name with Rogers I think you could throw in there where it's like, well, how is Priester doing so much better? How is Rogers doing so much better? Like, is there an environment change? And I watch baseball every single day, and like almost on a nightly basis, I'm looking at 2 or 3 balls off the bat that were barreled that I'm like, that ball should be 10 feet farther than it went. I think of Tommy Pham on a regular basis. He barrels well. He hits it to the warning track. When he hits it, he knows it's gone, and yet it's caught at the wall. So, but I'm not smart enough to sit here and say I know exactly what's happening with the drag on the ball or the ball is different. I just think my generalization this year is pitching is returning more value than overall hitting. And maybe the guys that are putting the ball in play are having more luck because they put it in play and they have more chances. But I don't think as fantasy managers we can really use that information because it changes year to year. The environment is always going to be different because they play outside for the most part, right?
I'm happy to know that that someone is thinking about Tommy Pham as much as you are, Matt. I'm sure Tommy Pham's really happy about that, to be honest.
He's controversial.
Tommy Pham is ecstatic about that. But real quick, back to the closure thing. I just pulled up the saves leaders in the 2020s. All right, so it gives us 5.5 whatever seasons. So Clase is 1, Hader 2, Jansen 3, Iglesias 4, Diaz 5. So you got some guys that have been fairly consistent. And then you got Romano, who's been kind of in and out of the role a few times. Kyle Finnegan is 7th. Then Ryan Presley, who's no longer really closing out games, is 8th. Camilo Doval, we've seen him go in and out of that role a few times, 9th. And then Ryan Helsley is 10th, who's now not closing out games. Bednar, 11th, super inconsistent. Carlos Estevez, Craig Kimbrell, Liam Hendricks. Not many of these guys are like closing out games today. So it kind of just shows like, there's so much unpredictability outside of like you have that small handful of the guys, but even like look at the guys at the top, like Jansen's super old. How much longer is he going to be doing it? Iglesias is getting older. Clase, who knows how that's going to play out? Hader's had his injuries, so it just shows you even the elite guys, there's just not many safe, reliable reliever options, even with the top guys. So yeah, that's why I don't like to build around it for sure.
Well, and I brought this question up because my home dynasty league is 12, Eric. So it falls underneath that threshold you kind of talked about with like minimal managers for dynasty, which I like 12 because it's a home league. It's different, right? We have those pieces to it. But a team that was knocked out of the playoffs, I want to say they had the 3rd most points. They had a really crappy reliever core, and reliever is important in this points league. Well, again, the reason I bring it up is because they have Iglesias and they have Finnegan. Between those 2 players, they almost have 100 points just with those 2 guys in the last 2 weeks. Iglesias has 5 saves while Finnegan has 5 innings and his return value. And I find it interesting because, again, we play fantasy to win fantasy, but reliever is a lot about current context as well. Is their team putting them in a position to get saves, right? You can't look at a schedule when you're drafting or when you're putting keepers together in the offseason and say, I can guarantee that Iglesias will be getting 6 chances over 2 weeks in the first round of the playoffs. I can't guarantee that Finnegan's not going to be on Washington anymore and returning value on Detroit. But yet, that's kind of the job we have to do, right? If saves or holds are important to your league, you kind of need to be able to project where you're going to be at. Iglesias lost his job 3 months ago, yet here he is with 5 saves in a span of 10 days. That's incredibly valuable. But again, like, we can't really forecast that. We can hopefully forecast that the Braves will be in games that they need to win. So hopefully their closer will be needed. I just find it a very volatile position where logic doesn't really pierce through all the time. And then that's kind of why the question came up. It's like, how do you help people win leagues when those are valuable pieces? And I don't know that there's a great answer to it other than targeting trades at the deadline.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if you came to the year with a bullpen trio of, let's say, Clase, Helsley, and Robert Suarez. How good is that looking in like June, July? And now Clase is suspended. Suarez is not really closing out games anymore after the Mason Miller acquisition, and Helsley is setting up for Diaz in New York. So it's like you went from having probably the best bullpen in your league to scrambling, spending a lot of money on fab or trying to hit that waiver wire hard. So it can even change. We talk about year over year, just month over month, within the season. And we always see, the Helsleys of the world, these guys always get, maybe not Mason Millers, but the Helsleys of the world, they always get dealt at the deadline. We see some of these guys go from being closers on middle of the road or bad teams to set up guys and good teams. We see it every year. So it's just so hard. Like, you can go from having a great bullpen to a, crap bullpen in a span of like 24 hours. That's just how quickly it can change.
Okay. Now, Doc, I think I'm going to send this your way, and then we'll see if Eric has any rebuttal on it. Okay. With what you just said, Eric, the logic to me would say, if you're sitting in June with those 3 names, right, you might be better trading them, all 3 of them, going out there and packaging it up for, maybe 2 relievers and a prospect, or a top 15 closer and a prospect, trying to identify players from teams that need to keep their closer. As Helsley's a perfect example, right? You could almost guarantee the Cardinals were going to trade him. If he ends up as a setup man, you lose value. Suarez, a little harder to gauge there. No one expected Mason Miller to be a Padre in June. I don't think anyone did. If they did, they're geniuses. And then no one could expect Clase to get pinged for gambling, right? But I think the same thing could be said for Hader. No one would expect him to blow his shoulder out. There's always risk. So, Doc, if you were to have that team that Eric just described, are you more inclined to maybe go aggressively shop those top tier relievers, or do you like holding on to them until they burn out?
Oh man, I friggin' love holding on to garbage, and like I don't like trading away guys at peak value. That's for sure. Like, it's like, yeah, a pretty easy question. With hindsight, it would be a very easy question. I don't think we knew Helsley was going to be traded to be a setup man. And also, it depends on your league. We're not really specifying, right? So saves plus holds, the way Helsley's played over the last few years, going to New York, who is supposed to be like winning games, where the Cardinals kind of more of a question. It wasn't like necessarily a bad trade for his fantasy value and saves plus holds. In theory, like at the time, obviously hindsight, he's just blowing up all the time. He always said he loved St. Louis. He didn't really want to go. Maybe he's just purposely tanking his value. I'll just this is crazy crackpot stuff, but he hates New York secretly. It could be a thing, right? Like not that he hates New York, but this is me really talking now. Like some people just don't do well in different environments. The New York City is not the middle of America, right? And so this could just be it could be certain things. Maybe his family doesn't like the move. I don't know what's going on, right? But there's something that's not right now. And frankly, this is a good, pivot to like what's next, right? For Dynasty. Like, what do you do with a Ryan Helsley, for example? Like, that's right now I'd be buying in dynasties. Not our salary cap league where he's $13 million and I have to re-sign him and I'm not going to. But Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it just depends on your league, man. You can't if you're in a 30 teamer. What are you gonna do with Class A? What are you gonna do with Helsley? Like you're gonna go sell them to some other contender if you're contending? Yeah, of course. Like it's always league dependent in my opinion.
Right.
So no, I don't really know if I do anything differently.
What are we really expecting with Class A? I mean, I've talked to a lot of buddies about this and had industry conversation. I don't know that we've ever really seen a number one at their position get popped for gambling. Like this is really a first telltale sign of how this league and maybe other leagues are going to handle this. We've seen it a little bit in the NBA with guys that are not really noteworthy. Eric, if you hold Class A and Dynasty, are you thinking potentially of trading him? Are you waiting to see how it plays out? And what do you really think Major League Baseball comes down? Like, is it a lifetime ban potentially? Is it maybe a season ban? Like, do we not have enough information to even speculate at this point?
I don't think we have enough information, and even if we did, I don't know, man. Like, and how long he's gonna be out, or if it's forever, or I don't know. We've seen, obviously they've cracked down a lot on that in the past, and this whole investigation. I think we're still like in the early stages of that, but then they reinstated Pete. Like there's so many. The gambling part of it is so weird, right? We just don't know what to expect. Like, what is Manfred going to think on this particular day or week or whatever? But if I had Class A, I would be holding them. I mean, I think it's if you're in a shallower format, okay, I can see like dropping them depending on what the options are. But the deeper the format, you kind of got to hold on to them because you don't really want to drop them. And if you're whoever you're picking up in that deeper format, it's probably not going to be anyone great, right? So I think you're almost better served to just hold and just hope for the best because you can't really trade them. You'd be trading them for pennies on the dollar, 80 cents on the dollar, wherever you want to call it. It'd be low value. So, and if he comes back, you're like, oh crap. Well, I just got rid of him, and for a bad return. So you almost kind of have to hold and cross your fingers. But I have no idea how this is going to play out. I'm intrigued to see how it's going to play out, and if we get more more players involved, or hopefully not. I don't want this to become a huge scandal and put a huge damper on the sport, but. Yeah, I think it's gonna be weird to see how it plays out, but yeah, I have no idea how it's gonna play out.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair answer. Doc, you had a great tee up here in our outline, which is prospects who could make a difference on the stretch. Basayo getting the call already. We saw Beavers get the call today. Eric, for your Red Sox, the password got the call, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So I want to kick this off to you first, and then Doc, you can chime in. Password's been playing great at AAA, right? The injury to Abreu has opened up an opportunity for him. I want you to talk a little bit about the password and then maybe some other prospects outside of the Basayo and Beavers who you think may provide value to dynasty and fantasy managers to end out the 2025 season.
Yeah, no, Yostinson Garcia is a really fun prospect, and he had that breakout year last year. I think it was like 23 home runs, 17 steals, and then this year not really running as much, but hitting for a lot of power. And he's kind of become more of a power over hit guy. Though the contact skills aren't bad at all, but I do wonder if he's more like just like a 50 grade hitter, like a 260 ish guy long term. But he does, he's walking more this year, and really, and the power numbers that they're not Basayo levels of hard hit, barrel rate, etc. But he also hits the ball at ideal angles. He's getting to that pull side. He's elevating. Which, as a righty in Fenway, obviously is a good thing. So I think long term, this could be a 260-ish hitter, 25 plus home runs, 25 30 home run guy who also adds like 8 to 10 steals annually. So not like a stud, but still like a really good offensive player. I just don't know like how much he's going to play this year. Obviously, coming up with Abreu hitting the IL, Ref Center's on the IL already. So I think he'll get some run here, and he's been playing a little bit of first base too. Then AAA, I don't know how much we'll see him at first base initially, but yeah, I like him. I think he's a very, very good prospect. Not an elite stud prospect, but definitely very good. And even with this like latest little wave of prospect promotions that we've had over like the last week or so, there's still like a lot of intriguing guys that I think could get the call. Like on the hitting side. Do we see? I think we can see like Christian Campbell. I know he's not a prospect per se, but he kind of fits, right?
He's a
Christian Campbell
prospect.
Yeah, I mean, not technically anymore, but he still kind of feels like it. But he can get recalled. Jordan Lawler, I think, could get recalled. Spencer Jones, JJ Weatherholt. Carson Bench is hurt right now. It kind of puts a damper on that. But Justin Crawford and Philly, Bryce Eldridge, maybe even Sal Stewart, though. The signing of Cabrian or the trade for Cabrian Hayes put a little bit of a damper on that too. But yeah, I still think there's a lot of hitting prospects that could get the call. And on the pitching side, Chandler's getting the call right now. Andrew Painter, I think, is still going to be up this year. Robbie Snelling might be the biggest impact guy. I think he gets a shot with Miami very soon. Maybe one of the New York guys, Sprout or Tong, can come up and join Nolan McLean. Still, maybe Savage. There's still a lot of fun names that could get the call up this year. So I think the ones I'm looking forward to the most would be like Weatherholt, Snelling, and maybe like Campbell or Jordan Lawler. So there's still a lot of fun names that could call up.
Yeah, that was a great list. And I think what was interesting too is some of those players are on teams that are going to work their way into October, right? Savage might have that role in Toronto out of the bullpen, right? Because Bieber comes back and I think pitches tomorrow, no current injuries. So, stretch him into that middle relief role, maybe that long piggyback role if they need a guy just to give him that major league experience. Weatherholt's been just such a stud and should have the opportunity for playing time in St. Louis, as you kind of alluded to there. But yeah, great pronunciation, and I knew you'd be able to nail that since you're a Red Sox fan. I've just referred to him as the password and may continue to do so because it is one of the most wild first name spellings I've seen. Doc, Eric,
I think the hard real quick. I think the harder thing is spelling it.
Yeah, no
I think
chance. Oh no, no. What is there? Two X's in there or one?
Just the one. It's JHOSTYNXON. So I think as Red Sox fans, having to growing up, having to learn how to, I never saw this guy play, but learning how to say it and write it out. Yastrzemski with the Z in there. So I think Red Sox fans are like, all right, we went through this before. This is like new age, name version of Carl Yastrzemski. We're like, all right, there's an X in there somewhere. Where the heck does it go? How do you pronounce it? It's a fun name, but yeah, it took me a bit to figure out how to say it, but I got it down now.
Before I pass it off to you, Doc, and you can kind of mention some of the names that Eric went into there. But Eric, do you think that Garcia is a starter for Boston, in the near future? And I say that looking at 2026, Abreu will be back. You have Roman Anthony. You have the trade conversation for Duran happening, which seems like every single day. Does Garcia fall into the outfield, or is he a DH? Like you mentioned first base. Where do you see him, and what does his playing time look like in 2026 in Boston?
I do think he's a starter for the majority of the season next year. I don't know if it's going to be like opening day in the starting lineup type of thing, though. I think it really all depends on what the Sox do this offseason. I still think there's I'm not saying one of these guys is going to be gone 100%, but I still think there's a decent chance that Duran could get moved in the offseason. Maybe Wilyer Abreu, one of those two. I think those are the two most likely guys to bring in another good pitcher. We'll see if they were trying to do that maybe at the deadline. So maybe we'll see if they do that this offseason. But yeah, I do think, I mean, maybe Garcia gets packaged. Like he was kind of rumored to be maybe in that, package for Joe Ryan. So I think there's a 50+% chance that either Garcia's starting on another team next year or one of the two, Duran or Abreu's gone, which opens up that spot for him. So yeah, I do think he's starting. Probably will be in Boston. So yeah, I think he could be starting more often than not for the Sox next year.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that little insight there into the Red Sox organizational depth. Doc, what do you think of some of the names that Eric rattled off there?
Gosh, I hate to do this because I love talking and hearing my voice on the airwaves, but I gotta bounce one more back to Eric here. First, I will say Christian Campbell. It's like I mean, it's such a weird situation. He feels like a prospect.
Right, exactly.
I don't care what. Of course, he's not going to win, Rookie of the Year anymore. He technically is not, but he's a prospect in my heart. He's played a lot more minor league games than major league games, all right? So,
yeah,
kid's young. I want to ask you: are you aware how good Kyle Harrison has been since July 13th? He's got a 2.16 ERA.
Yeah.
And I just had a feeling in my gut that he'd been doing well. I know I heard about them reworking some things, and I'm like, this just seems like a situation. His face looks very Bostonian. Like, doesn't he have that Boston face? Like he's like he grew up on the, like just in the, like those movies. I know nothing about Boston, but he just looks like a guy who's been punched in the face in the what is it, the South Side, right? The Southies. He looks like a Southie.
South side, yeah. Yeah.
No idea, completely out of my element. But it's like I've watched a lot of movies, guys. Hey guys, I watched one movie. Okay, I saw The Departed, and that's
You
what
need
I
to
know.
watch The Town.
The Town. Okay, and I saw what's the one? What's the movie? The other Matt Damon one was that Good Will Hunting? Was that in Boston? Probably. I don't know.
It's been so long since I've seen that movie. It's been forever.
Technically, yes. Yeah, Boston
Yeah.
has some good movies. That was a great little like media introduction there, Doc. We'll have to make that a segment.
You're welcome. I mean, that's all I can do. But Kyle Harrison, I think that's a guy who, I mean, I genuinely am asking Eric what his thoughts are, but I will just say, like, my opinion on the situation, I guess, since there was an opening there, I'm taking it. Kyle Harrison looks like a fun. I have him stashed. And I think it's not the sexiest stash, but that's like the more realistic play. Like a lot of rookies don't come up and crush it, right? The guys who kind of go through the pain and then come back up, like Hayden Birdsong, his value is really low right now. This is going way off the reservation, but Birdsong over the offseason, people are going to be way out. Trust me, they're already out. So buy Birdsong now if you think he could ever be good again, because if he shows that life, it's going to be great, and it'll be a huge profit. As of right now, people have given up on Kyle Harrison. I think. Eric, what are your thoughts on him as a Boston guy, Boston fan?
I hate to say it, like I've never been a Harrison guy, to be honest with you. I've never thought he was bad, but I saw him live in Double A a couple of times when he came up through, and I wasn't super impressed. Like I think the fastball is middle of the road. Like it's not like it's got decent velocity, but it's not like a great movement profile on the fastball. The slurve has been good, but that's really been his go-to pitch. Change has been inconsistent. They've had him add a cutter here in Boston, which is another thing. They had Dustin May throw more cutters. I think that's like a kind of an organizational thing that they're kind of leaning on cutters now. So I'm not saying I'm like out on him by any means. I don't think we see a lot of him this year. I really don't. I feel like it would have happened by now. So we've had him for a little over 2 months now. That Devers trade was mid-June. He still could get the call up. I just don't know in what capacity that could be. Like, I still
Do
think
pitchers get hurt? Do pitchers ever get hurt?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I think there still could be a decent arm in there, but I don't see like the impact, top. I don't think he's gonna be like a top 30 fantasy arm or anything like that. But there's still some upside. I'm still intrigued. I'm like, all right, let's see what I always love when a pitcher, like a young pitcher with talent, like when Taj Bradley went to Minnesota. I'm like, all right, what does the new team do? What do they see? Like, with Dustin May, even like, all right, he said right after that first start, Boston wants me to throw more cutters. The Dodgers wanted me to use it like sparingly, like a fourth offering. Boston's like, hey, let's use that more. So I always love seeing like, what are the changes? What's the arsenal look like? What does the new team see that they like, that they want to use more or less? So I'm always intrigued when that type of move happens. So I'm intrigued. I'm like, all right, what do we do? What does the new Harrison look like? So I'm still intrigued a little bit, but yeah, I think I've just been a little bit lower. I don't hate him. I've just been, I think, lower than most on Harrison for the most part.
Well, it's the crafty lefty, so it's always been about arm slot with him. It's just a weird fastball,
Yeah.
and so I could see. I haven't seen his cutter, but I'd imagine that might be the same kind of idea there. And so if that fastball isn't overpowering, but you can pair it, tunnel it with a cutter, that's kind of fun, right? Yeah. So interesting. Apparently, it's working at AAA, so we will find out there. And you know what? It's true here too. I was never a huge Kyle Harrison guy, but what I just find is this darned perceived value. This game just leads me to players I didn't think I would like. I was never actually like the Waldrop guy, but I'm like, whoa, it's just like the opportunity is there now. Yeah, okay, now I have shares of him everywhere. Guess I'm a Waldrop guy, and Jet Williams is a guy who in 2023, I was getting excited. I think everyone was. It feels like 2023 again, folks. I don't know. Again, if you haven't been paying attention, last year he was already a shorter guy. He's listed at 5'7", kind of a he's got that a little bit more power than a Caleb Durbin type, but he's certainly still spunky. He's got that grind. He's got that grinder kind of playing style, plays a lot of important defensive positions, and he sucked last year and had no power, but he had hand and wrist issues. I believe he broke his hand. It was rough. This year in Double A, he was hitting 280. He's got promoted to Triple A, but in Double A he was hitting 281 with a 390 OBP, and that's why we were falling in love with him before. That OBP and the average is looking nice. 10 home runs in 96 games. I mean, I don't know if we're seeing 20 plus power here, but 32 stolen bases is pretty nice. And it feels like he's been around forever. Doesn't it feel like he shouldn't be 21 anymore?
Right.
So this is a guy who he's on the doorstep, and we might see Jet Williams even this year. Again, people said this to me about Noah Cameron. They say it all the time when there's like technically a roadblock in front of someone. First of all, bet on the talent. Second of all, injuries happen. Just like it's what you do with the opportunity. And Noah Cameron, he got an opportunity. Even when he was crushing it, people were still doubting. They're like, people are going to come back. And I'm like, maybe. But if they take one extra week and he keeps pitching well, some other guy gets a little banged up, there's always a way, especially when you're good.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, that kind of feeds us into the final segment of the day. We're at 55 minutes. We've had some great conversation so far. But last topic we think we wanted to cover today is 2026 impact prospects. And Doc, we love Konnor Griffin, right? Eric, I think you're right on board there. You were really aggressive.
Number one, baby.
Number one. Yep. And there are going to be other names, of course, I want to talk about in this segment as well. But let's start with Konnor Griffin. The promotion to Double A, I think, really opens the door for an aggressive 2026 potential for Griffin. What have you seen so far in the prospect profile that has given you the confidence to place him number one, first and foremost, Eric? And then secondly, do you think there is a chance that Pittsburgh's aggressive with Griffin in 2026 and we see him either opening day, which would be crazy, June, July, August time manipulation? Like, where are your thoughts with his overall ascension?
Yeah, I think it's funny just because like what we've been seeing, with the delayed promotion of a Bubba Chandler, people are like, oh, we won't see Griffin until 2032 or something. But they've tended to be a little more aggressive on the hitting side as opposed to the pitching side with their top guys. So yeah, I think a second half debut next year is definitely in the cards. I think they've kind of shown that. They've already pushed Griffin as a 19-year-old 3 levels this year. Started off in low A, 50 games, high A, 51 games, and now he's played a couple games so far in Double A. The upside, I don't like making comps, but I try not to think about this when I watch Griffin play, but it's like I see a young Bobby Witt Jr. I'm not saying he's gonna be Bobby Witt Jr. 2.0. Like, don't take he's not gonna be number one guy or something like that down the road. I'm not saying that necessarily, but you see a lot of similarities in the profile where it's like, the good, not like huge power, but plus power, elite athlete. This double plus or elite 80 grade runner. That steals bags, is efficient on the base pass. But what really kind of pushed him up there for me, and he's a guy that I'm like, fast forward to rewind to like February. I'm like, all right, this guy was one of the more higher upside guys in last year's draft, and this guy has the upside to be the number one prospect if some things improve with the hit tool. Well, guess what? They did. That was the question. Like, all right, can this guy, is he too aggressive? Is he going to strike out too much? Is the walker going to be too low? Are the contact skills going to be there? Well, his contact rate is around 75% this year, which is solid, pretty good right there, especially for his age and the competition he's been facing. And he's been walking more as the season goes on. K rate's been coming down. So like everything's been trending in the right direction. So when we saw that, start to happen, I'm like, all right, maybe this guy's top 10 now. Oh, this is still happening. I'm like, all right. I was like, I think it was one of the first ones out there that I was like thinking when Anthony graduates, I'm like, all right, this guy's my new number one. And yeah, there's several other guys that you could make a case for, McGonigal, obviously, Basayo. If you wanted to put one of the Milwaukee guys up there, Walcott, I wouldn't like fully argue against it. But for me, I'm like, all right, this guy has the upside. He's making the improvements. So like, that's huge to see a 19-year-old make these improvements throughout a season while being pushed 2 levels. That's huge. So yeah, he's still only 18. He's still like not knocking on the door yet to Pittsburgh, but man, like the upside is truly like fantasy first round. So given the improvements we saw from him this year, yeah, I felt comfortable pushing him number one overall And I do think we could see him later on next year. I think that's definitely in the cards.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to look at it from an FYPD perspective because a name that comes to mind when thinking of the potential outcomes that Griffin has seen, right? Your number one prospect. Well, Elijah Green had a lot of excitement coming out of his placement with the Washington Nationals too,
Yep.
and hasn't worked out, right? It looks like those hit tool concerns were real, whereas with Griffin, they were not as real as the scouts or the analysts really wanted them to be when trying to find that hole. I think that's an overall great take on Griffin. Who are a couple other names maybe in 2026 that you're looking at that will provide value? And I ask that with the hope that you bring up Sal Stewart. And if he's not a name, maybe we talk about him before we say goodbye today.
Oh, I definitely think we see Sal Stewart. And I still think we could see Sal Stewart this year. So yeah, I think he's definitely a name that could get caught up. And people kind of don't think he's like a super buzzy, hyped, prospect, but there's a lot of power here. You look at his numbers in AAA, it's a 50% hard hit rate and a 19% barrel rate. To go on, the good contact skills that he's always had, never strikes out that much. Like, it feels like he could be like Brian Reynolds with a bit more power upside. It's kind of what would have been obviously infield version of that. But I've warmed up a lot. Like every update, it's like I'm pushing Stewart 10 spots higher, 12 spots higher, to the point where I think he's a top 50 guy right now. I think it's hard to argue against that. But I think we see him up, early next year, if not this year. I think you see, Kevin McGonigal pretty, early or middle of next year as well. He's my number 2 guy right now, and he's probably the highest. If you ranked on strictly floor, you might put McGonigal 1. And I think that's not the slide on his upside, because the upside's there too. He's one of the best hit tool guys in the minor leagues. The sneaky good power there. He can run. So I think you see McGonigal up with Detroit next year. And, I don't think you see, like, even though he's at AA, I don't really think we see Walcott. If we do, it's late. Maybe you see, there's a lot of like fun guys that we could see second half. Like a lot of my top 15 to 20, like Max Clark, Walker Jenkins, like the Dodger guys, Hope, DePaula, all of them, Quintero. You could see them later next year as well. Maybe you see like a Jose Briseño middle of next year as well. And then some of the other guys I mentioned earlier, if Weatherholt doesn't get called up, is probably early next year. I don't think you see the Milwaukee guys, Pena or Made next year, but there's still a lot of really fun guys. And on the pitching side, I think you see Thomas White, up with Miami more than he's in the minor leagues next year. So yeah, still, I think next year's gonna be a really fun year for prospect promotions. A lot of the next wave of guys could come up next year. It'll be really fun.
Yeah, I love the McGonigal because Torres, if I'm correct, is on a 1-year deal, right? Has provided
I
big
think so,
impact for
yeah.
them, but he's going to probably sign somewhere else. I think he made the right call with that 1-year bet on himself, and they have a replacement. So why give him the extension, right? We saw that with the overextension of Baez when they needed to bring a superstar and did not really work for them. So might as well just fill that with your back order there. Doc, Eric had a couple of great names he mentioned there. Did you want to dive into any of the prospects that he kind of projected for 2026 as providing impact?
Talk about buying a dip, and I didn't do it. I didn't do it. With Robbie Snelling, I forgot to mention him. Eric mentioned him earlier. I didn't touch on him then, but I'm going to touch him now. And wait, what? But
hey, phrasing.
Yeah. So I think he's actually in the number 1 pitching prospect conversation, and I think that people aren't really wanting to have that conversation. But it's like the numbers say he should be. The numbers say he's crushing way more than Bubba or Painter have been this year, by the way, at the same level. And Bubba actually has like a 7.4 ERA since July, middle of July. Like, this is why he's being brought as a reliever. And I'm not saying he's going to be a reliever long term. I'm not out on Bubba Chandler long term, but like the people who are freaking out saying, "Oh, Pittsburgh never brings up their guys," I'm like, "Yet he's not helping himself." This isn't Skeens. With Skeens is like, it was just, I was there. I was watching Skeens live. It was like playing beginner mode on MLB The Show, but you've been playing it for years. It's just like, come on, this is boring. Come on, man. It's not real. It's not fair. And so with Bubba, he's just imploding all over the place. And so it'll be interesting to see how he does in the majors. Think that bringing him on as a reliever to maybe quell the fans will help too. But yeah, I agree with the Konnor Griffin situation. And I actually don't think his upside is top 10 player in fantasy or real life baseball. I think it's actually the peak upside is number 1 player in fantasy baseball. And because he's like, frankly, a bigger Bobby Witt and a guy who is like on track to maybe steal more bases than Bobby Witt. Like, it's just, I get it, right? Like, it's scary to say these things. And it's like, it's funny because I just like kind of happen to bumble my way into being buddies with his dad. But it's so cool because like I wanted to like root for Konnor because of that relationship, and how I'm like, oh gosh, like I'm like more excited about him than I've ever been. It's just unbelievable. I put a post out there. I didn't say it's going to happen. I didn't say it's likely to happen. I said it wouldn't shock me if Konnor Griffin went out here and like kept doing the same thing, like bomb, stolen. He's already got a stolen base 2 games in. But yeah, like if he's just like hitting like 270 with a 330 OBP, nothing amazing, but like tons of home runs and stolen bases, playing great defense. If he's doing that, I think you have to let him have a good. You want to have him give it all he can to be a rookie of the year next year because of the incentives. For me, and people keep saying, well, you got to burn a 40-man for him. But I say, like, give him, if like, again, he'd have to earn it. Give him the last week of the regular season. A little bit of time in the show. Put some butts in the seats. Make some money that way. Get the fans fired up going into the offseason. Get Konnor fired up. Or give him a humbling. You know, get him like, hey, you're not quite ready. So we might start you in the minors, but this is what you're going to be up against. It's just, it seems like it makes a lot of sense for me. And again, the 40-man roster thing is hilarious if you just go and look at the Pirates 40-man roster. No offense to some of those guys, but like, what's going on? What is
it's not the Dodgers 40-man roster.
These fans are so broken, man, that I think they're just like it's a lot of the Pirates fans who were getting mad at me. They're like, it's the Pirates. You don't understand. You don't know what it's like. And it's like they're just tortured. They're about to not be tortured, man. Friggin' Griffin and Skeens is so cool. I just ran on a rampage there, so I'll just like do a shotgun blast of a couple guys and not get into it at all. A couple guys come up next year. I think you're right, Max Clark. People are kind of, I think we have it in our head that this guy's really far away still. He's not. He's looking really pro ready. I think, yeah, Clark, Weatherholt, and McGonigal have like some of the best floor. I think Max Clark has a Trey Turner upside, which is super exciting. And then I think I've talked about my Joseph Sullivan guy enough. I'm not going to get into it, but I think he's sneaky. I think he'll be up at some point next year. I think he could be doing some damage. That's a deeper one. Carter Jensen going to be a lot of fun, I think. We need to. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised Sal Perez hasn't hit the IL more than he has at this age and his body shape. But if he did, I think we might be seeing Carter Jensen this year. Bryce Eldridge, lest we forget, there's like this other random stud. Maybe Jack Caglione kind of like burst the bubble. Like it's just because it hasn't been exactly the way we dreamed it. On these huge power guys, but I think Bryce Eldridge might have a better hit tool, which is kind of exciting. We'll see. I mean, who knows? But it doesn't really matter. Like those two guys are just such power behemoths, like 70 power kind of guys. It's going to be a lot of fun. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but man, this is a great episode. I had a lot of fun. Matt, you haven't said anything in a while. What are your thoughts on all that?
I'm just trying to keep myself like sitting up properly here. I love all the names you guys both mentioned. I think that's something to be really excited about in 2026. The pitchers are what I'm excited about. The Thomas White, the Snelling, right? Really seeing some of these guys on teams that should provide them value, where we just look back 6 months, 5 months when we were doing redraft, it was Chandler and it was Painter. Well, look how that has returned us value this year.
0 starts as of yet.
Zero. Yes. So hopefully 2026 provides us some of these really high-end prospects that'll actually allow value to be returned. But the conversation about Hurston Waldrop was really important as well, because there will be names on our top 100s, our top 150s that do provide value later in the season that are important. Eric, before we say goodbye today, I really wanted to get your just quick snapshot view of the Devers trade. Being a Red Sox guy, someone that's dialed in, this was shocking news, I think, for the league. What did you think? And are you happy with the way the team has responded? And are you happy that the Red Sox are kind of through with his money and his contract, or do you feel differently?
I have a lot of mixed emotions on this on this subject, but I feel like they created this issue. Now I could rant for half an hour, but I'll try to keep it within a couple minutes, where the Red Sox kind of created this issue, obviously, with the Bregman thing and how they handled it. Like nobody handled it well. Devers himself, even like, nobody involved. Devers, the front office, coaching staff, nobody handled that well. So I think they kind of forced it into the situation that it was. I didn't like the return, but then again, when you think about the fact that San Fran took on the contract, you weren't going to get like Bryce Eldridge back in that deal. It just wasn't going to happen, right? That would have been awesome. I would have been over the moon if we got Bryce Eldridge back, especially with the Cassis never staying healthy nowadays. But that wasn't going to happen. But even so, even when you factored that in, it was a very Hicks has been terrible. Like it was just an underwhelming return. James Tibbs, I've never been the highest on. He's fine. I'm not like a super big James Tibbs guy, though he was doing well in the first few games of the Dodgers. But yeah, and then I think Kyle Harrison's the X factor there. Like he was always the X factor. Like, all right, can they turn him into an impact arm? Which obviously brings a lot of value to the Red Sox. But I think outside of just looking at the return itself, like the team responded, and you heard a lot of things like, all right, they're playing fun now, they're playing loose now. They don't have that whole drama, that soap opera, every day of will Devers play first base? Oh, but he's pissed off. Like it was like a soap opera with this team the first 2 months of the season. So you saw a lot of the young players really start to come into their own, and it kind of freed up that would have been more roster flexibility. So I still think Devers is a phenomenal player, one of the better hitters in baseball. But yeah, the team definitely responded well. They just kind of wished right now, like, oh, that'd be great to have Devers in the middle of the lineup still, but would they be playing this well if he was here? It's hard to say, but yeah, definitely a really weird time for Boston fans, but it's in the past now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary coming from someone who is keened in on what the team is doing and the dynamics it's playing. And I guess the last question I really have for you now is Roman Anthony. What a guy, right? Like, I mean, what we're seeing is different from the profile I think we expected as prospectors, but where are you at with his current season stats and then his projectability moving forward with his play discipline and his ability to really do damage when pitchers make mistakes? Are you higher on him than you were as the number one prospect in baseball, or was this just part of the growth that you expected to see?
I think I'd say I'm higher on him now than I was when he debuted. And yeah, like, he's hit I think it's just 4 home runs so far. He hasn't been like super gaudy. He hasn't been Nick Kurtz, obviously, right? Just Kurtz has had 4 home runs in the last week. But you see everything else, like everything like under the hood. He's hitting the ball hard, just into the ground a little bit too much. That can be corrected over time. But he looks like he's been in the league for 10 years. Just watching him, every single day with the Red Sox, like he looks like he belongs, and I think he knows not like in a bad cocky way, but like he knows his talent. I think that's the best way to put it. Like he knows what he's capable of, that he could be one of the better hitters in baseball. And I was actually looking at this the other day. He is I think it was the 6th highest rookie WRC plus in like Red Sox history. And the guys ahead of him are like, oh, it's Ted Williams, it's Yastrzemski, it's all of them, right? Like I think Nomar was up there, Mookie, it's guys like that. So and another one real quick. He is the 2nd Red Sox rookie in history to have 20, I think it was 20 walks and 20 extra base hits his first 50 games. The other one, pretty easily, Ted Williams. So when you're getting lumped into Ted Williams multiple times, I mean, that's a pretty damn good list to be on. So yeah, it might not be Nick Kurtz level of home runs yet, but yeah, he has all the talent in the world, and I think he's going to be an absolute stud. And you see him, he's leading off now a lot for Boston. So yeah, I think I'm higher now. Just the way that he started off a little cold, then made the adjustments. Like he made the adjustments really quick. That's the game. Like pitchers usually adjust first, then hitters adjust back. Like he made that really quick and quicker than most you'll see for rookies. So yeah, I'm just, as a fantasy guy who ranks prospects as part of his thing, as just a baseball fan in general, and especially as a Red Sox fan, I am super excited to see what he does the rest of this year and what he becomes ultimately long term, because it could be honestly one of the best players in baseball.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you said it best. Under the hood looks great. When I was looking into his profile just a few days ago, the one key identifier is launch angle, right? And you said it, like that will fix itself over time. Why fix something that's not broken and over exceeding expectations almost everywhere else outside of power, home run power, that is. Doc, did you want to toss anything Eric's way before we say goodbye today?
No, man.
Love that.
No, it was generally great having him on, but It's good to toss in some dry humor there, and people will just be like, "Gosh, Doc hates Eric." Keeps inviting him onto the podcast. What a weird guy, masochistic or something. Great podcast. I'm excited going forward. Eric, how you doing real quick? Fantasy leagues. Are you in the playoffs in some leagues? What do you like better, Roto or H to H, head to head? And how you doing? You got some good winning teams. I don't need to know the percentage. You got some good winning teams? Let's keep it optimistic.
Yeah, I think it's mostly been good this year. I had a couple of teams that I thought were going to be contenders were last year that kind of fell out of it for one reason or another. More mid-pack now, but yeah, mostly a pretty solid fantasy season. But I do, if I had to pick one, I do prefer Roto. But I still like my home keeper league is that I've been doing since sophomore year of high school now. We're in year 2021 of this league. It's head to head, and I still like the strategy involved in that. I just love playing fantasy. So I love playing all formats. Yeah, Roto's my favorite, but I still love the strategy that goes into all right, I gotta beat this one guy this week in the playoffs. All right, look at that team. All right, this team's good at they got a lot of speed, not a lot of power. I just love that whole kind of mindset, the whole game plan of all right, I have to kind of maybe make some changes based on what my opponent's team is strong or not strong at. So love that dynamic and kind of getting that different feel to your fantasy team. So always will love head to head. Always that's what I grew up on. And obviously, as you get older, even more so Roto. But I always have a special love in my heart for head to head. But yeah, mostly good this year.
Cool, man. Great. Yeah, I think a head to head is just like what you said, describes a lot of real baseball, right? Of course, it's not the real thing, but it's the closer thing, in my opinion. It's maybe Roto's more accurate, but it's I don't know. I do Roto because people like to play Roto sometimes. But I'm a head-to-head supremacist. I think it's fantastic. I think it's get hot at the right time, but you can strategize toward that, right? It's almost and it's a weird thing, but sometimes you almost have to gamble. I look at Wyatt Langford's numbers. I'm not going to do it. We're not going to do this. Podcast is ending, but I can look at Wyatt Langford's numbers. Any kind of player's numbers who look a little bit empty, like Gunnar Henderson. I'm that line looks a little bit empty. There's no way he ends the season like that well healthy. There's almost you want to bet. And of course, it's not that easy to trade for a Langford or a Gunner, but those are obvious examples of there's ways you could strategize to go in to buy in on second half resurgences and positive
Michael Harris
changing. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I love it. Get hot at the right time, baby. Build a team of guys who you believe are going to be there for you. And gosh darn it, Chris Sale and Pablo Lopez and maybe even the ghost of Ryan Weathers are coming back. We're going to win some championships around here. Ah!
That was a fantastic outro there, Doc. I appreciate that. Eric, we always appreciate having you on. You're so fantastic. Love talking ball. We could probably do this for hours on ends if our listeners would listen past 115, but the metrics say they do not, and I don't blame them. But Eric, thank you so much, man. We always love having you on, and hopefully we'll catch you before 2026 kicks off and have another great conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I always love chatting with you guys as well. It's every time I come on here, it's always a fun time. Doc's always doing his thing, which is always fun, and yeah, we always chop it up and have a good time. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Hell yeah, Doc. Why don't you send us out today?
I'm your Huckleberry.
We'll catch you guys next week.